Howdy, Donald.
Hi, Rick.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. In fact, I've been thinking about what we're reading, and I actually wanted to have something to mess everything up. Start today's session with
Nice.
I mean, this is really good. Uh, but I, I,
Yes.
well, we have this philosophies either existentialist or escapist statement from Kenneth. And we have here in this chapter a thing that a priori versus a posteriori logic. And I mean, and but I think this a priori versus a posteriori is one of those things that seems very clear, but is it?
But is
Let's
it?
well, let's look at the sort of driving force behind all our reasoning. Philosophy is existentialist or escapist. Is that statement a priori or is it a posteriori?
Yes.
Have we based on some ideology we've decided that thinking comes in two forms and therefore it must be put in one of the boxes, or as Phil used to talk about that, from Heidegger, some Heidegger thing, being we're thrown into the world, or Arendt takes that topic up too. And
Hmm.
so it's existential. And so we learn from our experience that we should either be existentialist, and when we're not, we're being escapist. So is that statement grounded in our experience as existentialists? That might make it sort of circular, sort of whatever. Or is it grounded in some sort of ideology that has an epistemology that goes with it that says, well, there's two kinds of things and they're either in one box or the other, and so
Yes. You're
so so
questioning the thing
so while
itself.
it seems so easy to put simple statements in one box or the other, you don't get to escape that examination, that deep examination. Or I was thinking there was another way that maybe Kenneth's statement is just an example of Hegel's when we abstract we fall into error. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah.
I'm sure Kenneth didn't say that because he thinks it contains some falsehood, or it's basically some falsehood, but it may end up being harder, or requiring more effort to justify as being an a posteriori existential statement itself
Yes.
than just an a priori. Oh, let's be lazy about putting knowledge in boxes, and we'll just say, I'll say he didn't make it that sort of law of the excluded middle. There are a lot of there are a lot of things between escapism and existentialism.
Yes.
So he hasn't just said escape. He hasn't made it tautological, like saying there's existentialism and there's non-existentialism.
Right. Just a
You know that's that's good. That's the So I just thought, I mean, because we're going to take this up as fideism is a invalid form, an unexamined form of a priori reasoning.
Right.
And so we fall back then to a priori versus a posteriori. But maybe that's not as clear as we would like to think. And in fact, has Kenneth properly divided philosophical thought? Well, I mean, I'm not really in a position to contest him on that. I'm not, but it's one of these things when we make things self-referential, bizarre things happen logically. Well,
Yes.
and that's now I can go back to sleep. And,
You've dropped the bombshell on us to plug.
well, I just thought the swimming pool needed something strange floating in it, you know.
Yeah, you're right. Part of what's going on with that statement is that he's screwing with us, right? I mean that he has expressed it in the form of an a priorism, and I think he's done it on purpose, probably with a twinkle in his eye, because you know how he is. Uh,
Oh, I know.
it's like the thing is structured as though it's another a priorism, but I think it's his way of saying once for those people who leave behind Dulea and discipline in themselves the faculties of intellectualism and systematic thinking and so on, which is everybody on this call has gone through that work. Anyone who's done that has now entered a vulnerable state. Hi, Geneva. They've
Hey,
entered a vulnerable state where we're talking about. Donald had an epiphany about Kenneth's line. Um, there are only two kinds of philosophy, just as there are of religion, existentialist and escapist. And he says, is
mm,
that itself an escapist statement? Is it an a priori statement? What has Kenneth done here? Is he guilty of the thing he's warning us of? And I think it's designed this way to make us ask the question. And I think part of the reason it's designed that way as a provocation is because once we've put in the work of intellectualizing ourselves and systematizing ourselves and logicalizing ourselves and so on, the danger becomes our brain so reflexively has been trained to escape into an equation or a calculation or a category or an abstraction that we do it anytime that we're not leashing ourselves deliberately. It's a reflex. And so we always, about everything we say, have to be asking the question, was I just someone hit my knee with a hammer and I kicked? Did I just abstract without meaning to? Because if I'm not always watching for it, I know I'm going to do it.
well,
That's
you're
what
just going to have to join Nietzsche's jihad against metaphysics.
right? I mean, there's kind of a purification jihad tone to this,
So this
the real.
tendency to escape is really your desire to look for a new horizon, which has been
Yes.
programmed into you as a hunter-gatherer.
Yes. Yes.
And
And
you think it's meaningful. That's the silliest bit.
yes. And so he's trying to warn us in a way that the a priori mind will appreciate because it's structured as an a priorism to be on guard against a priori reasoning. It is, I think, deliberately self-sabotaging the way he structured that statement. Uh, but it is true that I was having a walk with my one of my brothers yesterday around Green Lake, and as we walked, we were talking about the problem of what distinguishes the philosopher from the sophist is the sophist learns all the tools and techniques, and then he only uses them against everybody else's arguments. It's like, I can defeat you all. I can win all these arguments. And of course, as Kafka warns us, it's like, what good is it to have the Archimedean standpoint if you don't use it against yourself? That's to be a philosopher. You need to turn and face the biggest problem in your life, which is not everybody else, but the problems you carry with you into each and every encounter you ever go to. And you have to learn to hoist yourself on your own petard on purpose to as Kafka not only says he was permitted to achieve the Archimedean standpoint, but only on the condition that he use it against himself, which is the relevant issue here. But also the way he says a book must be an ice axe to break up the frozen sea within us. That's another Kafkaism that Kenneth Smith loves. He's
Uh,
like,
Ginny have something to say?
I'm going to call on her in a second.
No, no,
I'm
no,
just
no. Could you just repeat what you just said, Rick, please?
Yeah, it's a Kafka quote that Kenneth Smith likes. He says, "A book must be an ice axe to break up the frozen sea within us."
Book,
And
book must be Isaac's.
a book, if you write a book, you should write a book that helps people to break up their assumptions and their categories and their a prioris. Because if you don't fight against that, it will just win. You'll just your expectations and judgments will freeze solid, and then everything just becomes an exercise in rationalization. So you really have to the thing that people need more than anything from a book is that it helps to break that up, because where the hell else are we going to encounter these things that shake up our um,
Yeah, book must inspire them to think differently. Okay, I like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
So you can see why Kenneth likes Kafka. Is Kafka in these and other fragments, Kafka's constantly coming back at this problem of how do we break up the labyrinth? How do we shake up these a priorisms? How do we shake up these reflexes to escape that are so strong in us that if we're not paying attention, it is what we will do. It's the old habits. And now I'm back to Stephen and how do you bind Fenrir? It's like we've been bound through these things that we don't know how to examine or look at. And so I think he's just being a little clever there with his escapism versus existentiality dichotomy, because as an existentialist, he doesn't believe in absolute dichotomies, but he knows the a priori mind in us does believe in dichotomies, and so he gives it one that's a poison pill to help it break itself up. Go ahead, Jenny.
I do have a question. I mean, I posted it at another meeting, but I hope I'm not going off a little bit. But I'm curious, how many people did it take to write the Bible, do you think? Did any of you ever think about that? Like how many people
Beverly's
it took to
taking a
write the
class on
Bible?
that.
Huh?
My wife's going to Bright Divinity School online, and she's taking a class right now on how the Old Testament was written. And of course, in here we've been going through this book, Who Wrote the New Testament? And
Yeah.
the answer is a lot of people.
Yeah, like is it 50? Was it 100? What are the 1,000 people, to put it all together into the Bible? I'm just curious. Or was it just one person?
It was
Uh,
certainly not just one person. It was
yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of people,
Yeah.
especially if you include all the scribes. Because remember, there's no printing presses back then.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
every time the scroll was in danger of it was going to be gone forever, somebody had to copy that sucker. And along the way, despite their intentions, they will have got some things wrong. From the time when the Jews decided they wanted to purge their text of errors, all the errors that have been introduced by scribal errors or translation errors or what have you, and they put together an enormous committee, if you will, to start into the work of, okay, let's clean out all the crap and make sure we get back to what we originally meant. It took them 1,000 years. It took them 1,000 years to finish, as far as they could tell, to do the best that they could to clear out all of the cruft, because there's so many ways that when somebody is copying something or lecturing on something or translating something, they, even if they mean to be an empty vessel to just convey the thing authentically, they nevertheless partially become a co-author without meaning to. And trying to get that out of the Tanakh took 1,000 years of scholarship.
Okay, but the like Greek tragedians, for example, Aeschylus, Sophocles, and they came before Bible, right? The Greek writers, the ancient Greek period was before the Bible was written. Isn't that right? I mean,
It was before the New Testament was written, but the
before.
Old Testament was written over a period of about 700 years. The different
Oh,
parts of the Old Testament or the Tanakh were written at different periods, and some of the early books of the Tanakh were later rewritten. So some of the ones that were written before the Greek tragedies were also rewritten after the Greek tragedies. So the answer doesn't have a simple yes no question. It's not a binary. There
Yeah,
was
they
a
had
the
to
I.
erase Lilith from the Bible, or women would get the wrong idea.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, effectively, as as Jewish religion matured and developed towards monotheism through all its intermediate steps, they went back and edited the earlier books. Not perfectly. You can still find traces of some of the other, non um, monotheism forms. They're here and there, like Stephen is alluding to. There are little scraps and fragments that talk about, for example, Asherah, Yahweh's consort is still referenced in a few places, and they tried to get rid of a lot of that. So the result is, who wrote the first five books, who wrote the Chronicles, who wrote the prophets, who did the revisions, who did the translations, who did the cleanup, in deciding where all the vowels should go and which vowels they should be. That was part of what took 1,000 years, is, the disagreements about which of two words could it be. Because remember, in the old Hebrew writing system, it's only consonants, no vowels. And oh, you
Well,
didn't know that? Oh, yes. They didn't have an alphabet. They had a they like Arabic, ancient Hebrew is a consonant only language. And the assumption was that you would know what the vowels were from context, right? And you could try writing in English without any vowels, and a lot of the time you can figure it out. So imagine if Hebrew and Arabic in their old forms were a lot less ambiguous than English is. So most of the time, if all you had was the consonants, you could figure out what the vowels should be. But the problem is they also didn't have any punctuation early on. And so where's the break between the words? Punctuation was invented partly as a response to the difficulties of trying to work out for sure, for certain, which possible vowels and punctuation should be there.
Yeah,
This is
I
the
was
stuff
just
that
thinking, if you write chair, CHAIR without the vowel, it would be CHR, and you would kind of know that you're writing chair. Yeah, I can
exactly.
see. Yeah,
Which
yeah.
does
Okay.
CHR mean? And so these are the challenges, you get into. It's like, and this is Giampiero. By the way, welcome to the call, Giampiero. This is part of what Giampiero has said in the comments. There is, it starts out as an oral tradition. It starts being written down. Some people decide it wasn't written down right, and they write a different version of the oral tradition. Later, people have to figure out, well, which of these is authentic, or are they both authentic? And if they're both authentic but they disagree, what are we supposed to do now? There was all this recension and scholarly work that went into creating even just the Tanakh, not even talking about the New Testament. And that stuff started before the Greek tragedians were writing, but it went on until the Middle Ages. I mean, in like the middle of the Middle Ages, it went for about 1,000 years. Um,
So, but do you think that people who go to church, for example, do they think that the Bible was written by, all these different people, or do they think it poof, magically Bible appears? I'm just wondering what they.
Different people think different things. I mean, there are people in America who think the Bible was written in English. They believe it. And we
And by
know because,
God.
right?
And
We think,
by God.
and by
Yeah.
God.
Yeah,
God
Yeah.
like
spoke
poof,
English.
it
He
just
wrote in
appeared.
English.
Yeah.
Jesus spoke
Mm,
English, right?
right.
Blonde
Mm,
hair and blue eyes. There are people who believe this, and we know because
yep.
they say so. And we know there are other Christians who absolutely do not believe any of that stuff. So there's no simple answer to the question you're asking. It's a lot of different people have opinions.
the Babylonian captivity was a huge turnaround for their scholarship
Yes.
because they were backwoods people who suddenly found themselves in the big city, and there's a whole new order of
Yeah.
dealing with written material and ideas. And people don't pick up on this, just the Babylonian contribution to thought.
It's gigantic.
Like it's probably quite obvious. This is was in the Babylonian captivity that they start moving towards a type of monotheism.
Yes.
And it was the Babylonians that were pushing a concept of monolatry. The
Yes.
Babylonians were trying to make their, well, and the Assyrians actually, the god Ashur Marduk. They're trying to make that into the chief god of all the regions they conquered. And suddenly, the Hebrews from the backwoods suddenly go, oh, now there's an idea. Our God must be the chief God of the universe.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating. And it's part of why during the period when Jesus and Paul were running around, Judea and Samaria were separate kingdoms, not the same kingdom, because the Samaritans only trusted the Torah. They did not trust the rest of the Tanakh. The rest of the Tanakh was written after during the Babylonian exile and when the Jews came back from, the return from Babylon. And they returned from Babylon with all these ideas. And the Samaritans, who mostly stayed in Samaria the whole time, were like, I don't know where you got any of these new ideas. This is not our religion. I don't know what religion that is, but it's not ours. And so they remain separate. And one of the big disagreements between the Samaritans and the Jews to this day is the Jews have the whole Tanakh and the Samaritans only have the Torah. What Stephen's saying about the impact of the Babylonian exile he's absolutely right. It's gigantic.
Well, you think about this, you had a religious revolution amongst the Iranians, and David Miller's convinced that Zarathustra out there in the backwoods did it all. And you suddenly find that two separate peoples are developing monolatry at the same time. But who's the 600-pound gorilla
Mhm.
in the background? Babylon.
It's
Where
Babylon.
do you think all the crazy ideas would be? It would
Yeah.
be in this huge city that's devoted to all sorts of abstractions.
Yes. And Babylon had a depth of time to them. I mean, a lot of modern people don't understand. Babylon was not the oldest of the old. They look back to ancient Sumer in the way that we look back to the Greeks and Romans, they look back to ancient Sumer, and it was equally distant from them as Babylon is from us. I mean, we're talking depths, thousands of years, depths of time. Some of the first archaeologists that we know about in the world were Babylonians who were reconstructing old Sumerian ruins and finding their writings and trying to bring their philosophies and literature back to life during the Babylonian Empire. So, anybody from normal parts of the world around that time who found themselves immersed in Babylonian culture were suddenly being treated to these concepts of a depth of time and culture that they'd never encountered before. And it radicalized people, it changed people. Um, but nowadays we don't talk about any of that stuff. That's just, whatever, Babylonian, sure, whatever. It's counter modern to respect, how much of a contribution they made. But Stephen's right, it's true. I mean, it was gigantic. But anyway, so why don't we move towards today's session? This has all been good.